Welcome to the draft. I am your host, Abdullah. Today, we're going to be having a roundtable discussion about the gender pay gap. Is it real? Is it a myth? How real is it? With me today, we have Paige, Ronnie, and Dom. Paige, I'm going to start this off with you. I'm just going to ask it straight up. Is there a wage gap?
Yes, there is a wage gap. It is statistically proven that women earn only 60% of what men earn. Sex differences in hours worked have increased over time.
Ronnie?
Well, I do agree that there's a pay gap. I've always been told there is, and I fully believed it, but I've done some research that, kind of proves that it's, a myth. I found a stat that shows how the median income of women and the median income of men who both, work full-time, and it's kind of, interesting, So, the median income for women is around 30,000, and the median income for men is 40,000. So that equals out to, 77 cents to a man's dollar. So that sounds like there's a wage gap, but they don't really add in any of the variables, for example, education and occupation. And yeah.
What about you, Dom?
Well, what I was saying is I don't think it's even overblown. I think it is an issue that should be talked about because there's something called glass ceilings that refers to obstacles that stand in the way of women moving forward in their careers. An example might include a woman choosing not to apply for a promotion because she knows she needs to work part-time to be a caregiver at home.
Okay.
I agree. There's also something called sticky floors. These are disadvantages that women consistently face. So it's either when they're starting their careers or when they're getting ready to retire. If you want to put this into a real-life situation, maybe a boss would assume that women are less qualified for a position, and then he decides to offer her a lower salary when making a job offer versus if he would give a man the same job offer, he would give him more money for that.
Also, due to career disruptions, women have greater difficulty building up their experience, sometimes due to disruptions in their lives. Motherhood is a common source of disruption where a new mother will be more likely to take time off from work than a new father. Or because they took parental leave, a mother is less likely to receive a promotion.
Have you ever seen a male teacher take off work for maternity leave, or is it mainly women?
I haven't.
I haven't either.
I can't. I've never.
However, I can give an example from where I work at my job. Two of my bosses are in a relationship together, and they have a kid actually. And my boss actually got promoted after her maternity leave, and she received a raise after that. So is that really an obstacle? And the man in the relationship, he was already in his position, but he also took the same length of maternity leave, and it hasn't affected him either.
Yeah.
Not saying that these aren't real things, but I'm just giving, real life examples that I've seen personally.
Yeah, now that you mention that, I do remember a time in high school where my biology teacher actually called off because they had a kid, and he would actually take care of the baby, and while because they were in a couple just like how your bosses were, and yeah, his wife actually stayed in school while he would go home for a month, I'd say.
We see this a lot with athletes too.
Yeah.
That they missed sequences of games. If you remember Mike Conley, they were in the playoffs,
Mhm.
and Fred VanVleet, they missed multiple weeks of playoff games to
Yeah, 'cause
go
they had
take care of
kids.
their kids. All right, guys, those are some good points, but I kind of want to move on. Let's table the idea of sexism for a second. And what are some reasons for a pay gap outside of just, like I said, blatant sexism? What are some other reasons causing this gap?
I was doing some more research, and I found an article that Georgetown University did, and basically what they did is they put together a list of the best 5 paying majors and the 5 lowest paying majors, and found out the percentage of men and women in each of these majors. They went on to find out that 4 of the 5 highest paying majors were dominated by men, and 4 out of the 5 lowest paying majors were for the lowest paying majors were dominated by women. And I found that interesting. Again, I'm on the side. I do think there's a pay gap, but I don't know. There's a lot of research that's saying that it might not be true.
Well, don't you think it's strangely ironic that jobs mainly dominated by women pay less?
I mean, I wouldn't really say it's ironic because when you look at these careers, they're more skill-based, I would say, and they're not dominated it's hard to get into. It's just women are choosing these careers, such as teaching, nursing, being librarians. Also, when you just look at average families, the highest paying job for median income families are all labor jobs, which are almost exclusively men.
I think that sexism is a big factor in pay gap, as we were talking about earlier, but level of education is really the most important factor in pay level.
What do you mean?
No, you're just talking about like, what do you call it, degrees.
Yeah,
Those have
like-
been, all the research shows that the biggest indicator of pay is the degree you have and how long you've worked at a specific
Pretty
place.
much like how high you've reached.
Back to what Paige was saying, like about like how like women like get paid like differently, but like one of my studies said like how like women like how they like their education's different, and like they'd have lower education based off my statistics, and also I feel like they like women choose like different occupations. Like for example, like women like there's a lot of women that go for teaching and stuff like that, and teachers don't really get paid as much. Like I don't know, in like nursing and all that, and like labor jobs.
Exactly. So why, when they know that labor jobs are mainly dominated by men, why do they pay way more than jobs that are mainly dominated by women?
I mean, we know how teachers get paid. It's all through, government funding. It's not like, they can get like promoted based off just having a good job. It's all based off what the government's able to fund them, based off their school. Labor jobs are always going to be in demand no matter where we are, and women just don't pursue labor jobs, but they're always going to pay higher because they're very demanding and they're very necessary. That's just how it's going to be. It's not like all high-paying jobs, there's no women in there. Like, for example, if you work in law, that's a pretty even split between men and women. Those are very high-paying jobs. It's just an example, but like I said, I wouldn't say that they get paid less because they're jobs dominated by women. I would say they're jobs that pay less, and women pursue them very often.
I also think some jobs, like if you're likely to receive a promotion, then that means you get paid more, depending on like how high you work yourself up to. But if like women aren't pursuing those jobs, that's what the statistics would show.
I kind of want to tie that into our next subject. We were talking about promotions. I want to explain a concept to you guys. There's a personality trait called agreeableness. Now, the exact definition of that is the quality of being pleasant and friendly. It's a hard trait to measure, but studies have shown that agreeable people get paid less and that women are much more agreeable than men. A study done by The Conversation showed that agreeableness impacts both genders across all income levels, the highest effect of that being women of high income levels. And then you compare this to the effects of education, conscientiousness, reading performance, and we see that they don't have nearly the impact that agreeableness has. So kind of like how Dom was saying with the promotions, agreeableness obviously ties into that because it's about negotiating, being assertive. Women just simply are not as assertive and aggressive in these, negotiations. And that's not just me speaking. This is research done, proven multiple times. So that has to be a huge factor. So now that I bring that guy up, what do you guys think about that?
Do you have an example of agreeableness in a real life situation? Say someone may be working at a restaurant. Do you mean a woman is less likely to argue with a customer?
Yeah, pretty much. Just like I said, the quality of being, like the exact definition, quality of being pleasant and friendly. So not trying to be that, like start commotions, start arguments, not being as aggressive, not being as affirmative.
I feel like being more affirmative is less likely to please the customer, which would more likely get you a bad review. So how does that tie into your argument?
It's all about negotiations. Like I said, it's great to be, like I work in a restaurant. Being friendly to the customer is the number one thing. But, and like I said, I keep tying it back to my job because obviously, this doesn't represent everyone. But I know a girl at my job who is probably the best worker we have that isn't a manager, but she's never asked for a raise. She's never asked for a promotion. She's been there for almost a year and a half now, and she's still making the same salary as people who've just gotten hired, despite her being almost manager level. She's a very nice person. She's always nice with customers, but like I said, she's very agreeable. She hasn't tried to negotiate a higher salary at all, and that's why she's not getting a higher salary.
Yeah, I think you have to push for it and make
Exactly.
it known that you deserve the higher salary and that you're looking to
It must
get
be
a
clear
higher
she
salary.
does deserve that higher
Yeah.
salary.
Yeah.
But she's not asking for it. They're not just gonna.
Right.
This
They're
is
not gonna just
It's all
reward you
business.
for
They're
it.
not just gonna be like, obviously she deserves it, but the boss isn't gonna be like, oh, I know you deserve this. Here's
Right.
the money. They're gonna try to save whatever
Trying to
money they
save as
can.
much money, yeah.
They're
Well, I can disagree because I got offered a raise at my job too without asking.
I mean, that's very good for you, but that's
Yeah.
not how most negotiations work. At least, especially when you go to bigger corporations. Sometimes based off just time, like they'll be like, oh, you've been here blank amount of time, you're gonna get an automatic % raise. But just in general.
I can see how different jobs can show different things, and
Yeah.
people can have different opinions based on their experiences. For example, my opinion would be more, oh, well, I didn't have to ask for one, but you can see how someone else didn't get offered one, unlike me.
Yeah.
There was actually a study done by the U.S. Department of Labor, and it stated that the wage gap is almost entirely based on individual choices. So it kind of ties back with what you were saying, how like that girl that's at your work, like she could have asked for a raise and she might have got it, you know. And it also talks about how like things such as like hours worked and the type of jobs. But I just thought that tied back to what you were saying about that girl.
And I also found a study done by the University of Stanford that basically just said men are almost twice as likely to work overtime compared to women, and overtime work is something that plays huge into getting pay raises because, it shows dedication, all of that.
I think another reason why they might be more likely to work overtime is because, according to the studies that we were talking about earlier, that women a lot of the time have to take on like caregiver responsibilities at home, and sometimes like are more likely to take care of children and things like that, whereas like men might not.
I agree. Women have more responsibility when it comes to that. If you look at statistics based on just facts that the woman is more likely to be the one to take care of the child. Not to say that men don't, but it is more likely, and then that woman has the responsibility. So maybe she wants to work overtime, but she doesn't have the opportunity to.
Yeah, and that's just true. I'm not going to disagree with you at all. That is true, but I wouldn't really say that's sexism, but it's definitely unfair, and it does affect women more. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's like people coming out with bad intent, like forcing, like, oh,
like
she's gonna not. Yeah, it's not necessarily discrimination. It's more just the cutthroat business world.
It's more about like how society's like plays different roles on different.
And it's unfair because it definitely does affect women more than men. And that's definitely a factor that plays into the pay gap, but I wouldn't say it's just like necessarily sexism.
I understand. And I have a question. Do you think that the girl at your job who you think deserves a raise, do you think if she was a guy or if there was a guy that worked as hard as her that they would ask for a raise? Has there been other men coworkers at your job that have asked for raises?
I am relatively new there. I've only been there a few months, and there hasn't been any men that have asked for raises. But there also has been a lot of people that have filtered out. Most of the men that I work with are really new, so they really can't ask for raises. They've worked there either the same amount of time as me or less. But yeah, no, that is an interesting question. I also did notice that out of all the people that have worked there for a long time, almost all of them that work at my store have all been women. There's a girl who, she actually just left, but she worked there for 2 years. The girl who I already told you about. And then there's another girl who's been there almost 3 years now, where there's not really any men like that.
Yeah.
Alright guys, that was actually a very interesting conversation. I'm glad that we brought that up. But let's try to get a little more personal here, not to overstep my boundaries. But Paige, do you feel like you've experienced sexism in your lifetime working?
Well, I've only had my job since April, and I was lucky enough to not experience sexism. I work at a place where there is mostly women, and there's only 2 male workers where I work. So I have not experienced or had an experience where I was discriminated against for being a woman or a woman. So fortunately, no, I haven't.
Just out of curiosity, the 2 men that work there, what are their like positions? Like,
they're the same position as me.
Okay. And you said you haven't really faced that.
And, and my boss is a man, so he treats all of us equally.
Oh, okay. So your boss is a man?
Yes.
Is this like a store owner? Or
no,
like,
I work at a gymnastics gym, so he's the boss and he's the owner of the business too.
So you guys are like instructors, right?
Yes.
All right. And
Coaches.
so is he more like hands-on or more just like a business side?
More on the business side. He recently moved his position, so now we have a girl who kind of helps us. She just recently got that position, but she's more like helping us with our schedules and what days we're working and discussing like issues that happen. But she also treats all of the workers fairly, no matter if it's a girl or a guy.
Yeah. But the male boss, he's not like really with the day-to-day stuff. He doesn't like work
not
with
as
them
much.
too often.
Not as much.
Okay. And then Dom and Ronnie, do you guys feel like you've seen any sexism where you guys work?
Well, it's funny, like kind of like how Paige, like it's the opposite though. Like I work with all guys pretty much. My boss is like, she's a woman though, but yeah, like I can't really like
And then
Like-
same thing. What's like her involvement with you guys? Do you really interact with her at all? Or is she more just like kind of?
Yeah. I'm always like she probably texted me today asking me if I want to come in to work. She's always like, she's always there. Like she works like 6-7 days a week. She's always like she's always there. Like if I have any questions, if I forget a bag, she'll like text me. You know, she like I said, like she does everything
So
for us.
she's
She
very
cooks.
involved.
She's very
She's
involved.
in the kitchen.
She's
Okay,
doing everything.
okay.
She's up front taking calls. Yeah, like I said.
And Dom, yourself?
Yeah, for me, it's funny. Like, over the summer, I worked with my uncle for a moving company, and like moving things around, loading it into trunks and stuff. And I didn't work around any women at all on the job. So I think that in its own right, it's a different type of job. And that speaks to what we were talking about earlier
Yeah.
about like physical labor and how women might be less likely to apply for jobs like that due to a certain amount of reasons. So I haven't seen anything at all, but I feel like it's just because of the job that I did. That's why I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Do you think that people are more likely to stick to jobs of like working around people with
Yeah.
the same gender?
It's actually very
Because
interesting.
that could have a effect.
I did not
on
know
it.
you guys were going to answer like this, but our next question is actually directly about that. And I mean, it's loosely related, but when I was doing my research for this, I found a study. It was like an actual like scientific study, 43 pages. It's hard to read through. Regardless, the study basically showed that when employees work under bosses of the same ethnicity, cultural background, gender, that their length of working in terms of hours, in terms of career length, like how long they stay there, like months, years, all of that, the amount of promotions they receive, their just general quality of life, all of that spikes significantly, usually between like 5 and 20%, when, like I said, they share the same ethnicity, background, all that stuff with their boss. So when we're talking about these jobs, what we're applying for, how important is the relationship with your boss in terms of just being able to relate to them or just be around them when it comes to applying for jobs, staying there?
Well, obviously, like I said, I have a woman as my boss, but I feel like I can understand why, like, if I were to work with a male boss, I would like relate with him more, because I feel like
I agree.
all guys like you know, like we relate, like maybe sports, you know, like, you know, all guys like they have like their things.
I mean,
know?
I've been to your job personally. I know how it is. There's the TVs with the footballs, especially on Sundays
and all the guys are up front watching the games,
Yeah.
you know,
And
like
it's so much easier to, not to say that a girl and a guy, if the guy's a boss, or for me, or for Ronnie, where it's like the girl's a boss, that they can't relate, but it's just much easier, and you kind of feel a little bit more comfortable if there's someone who's kind of the same as you.
I was gonna say
you
the
feel
same.
more.
Yeah.
you
And just to be
know.
clear, this study that I'm referencing was more focused on like ethnicity than gender, but it still did factor in gender and stuff.
Mhm.
I think a lot of it's like the comfort level. Like you want to work somewhere and you want to be around people that make you feel comfortable. Because obviously you're not going to want to work at some place where you don't feel comfortable and you don't feel you can relate to
Yeah.
the people you're working around or the people that you're working for.
And I think we can all say that if you or any of you guys worked at a place that was all girls and you were the only guy, or if I worked at a place that was all guys and I was the only girl, I would feel
It
uncomfortable
would just
on
be
a
kind
lot
of
of
awkward.
levels.
Like you
Yeah.
might not feel you can relate to certain things that
Yeah.
they all can
Yeah.
relate to, or
You feel
don't
kind
have
of
fun
left
with
Yeah,
out.
you might feel like out of place. And
Like
Yeah.
me, I have fun at work. But
Yeah.
Like if, not to like I feel like if it was all girls though, like it would just be like I would just be doing it for the money. You
Right,
know?
like,
It
you
would
could-
be awkward.
I would
kind
have
of
like
at some point.
conversations and like you said earlier, sports, music, like whatever we are all
Yeah,
like
yeah,
into.
like-
There's so much common ground.
Like I enjoy going to work. You
And I know that my job, we always try to make sure that, because sometimes the way the schedule's lined up, we can be working with like 4 people in the front, 3 of them are guys and there's only 1 girl.
Mm-hmm.
So we might maybe move one of the guys into the kitchen and grab a girl from the kitchen, just go back in the front, just to make the girl feel more comfortable,
Yeah.
or vice
Yeah.
versa,
Agreed.
you know, the other way around. Just to, like I said, kind of makes everyone more comfortable, more happy. Also, does this have like a domino effect, we think? Kind of how we're talking about women going after lower paying jobs, where we see like, you want to feel comfortable, you want to be with people around you.
Agreed.
So the women know, other women work this job, I want to work this job,
A
but that's a
women-
lower paying job, and that
Yeah.
has that kind of ripple effect.
For example, if all of the men, like we said, statistically, all of the men are in the workplace, not to say that, you know, one of my friends, I think, wanted to go into the trades, but the woman is less likely to kind of attract to that job because she knows, like, if you know that that's mainly men, you might feel out of place.
Yeah.
You might want to go where you feel more comfortable or where there's women that like to do the same things as you.
Mm-hmm. And it goes the other way too with, like, for example, there's kind of like this idea of, like, the male nurse. A lot of guys, like, just want to stray away from that, even though, like, I know some guys that are very into medicine.
It's about, like, the stereotypes.
Yeah,
And
Yeah,
but they don't want to be
stereotype.
like they don't want to be like a male nurse.
Yeah.
They think it's
Yes.
like weird. They don't want
like, they don't call people female nurses. It's
Yeah, it's
always
just
like,
a
oh, it's
nurse.
a male nurse
Yeah.
instead.
Yeah.
It's either you're a nurse or you're a male
Yeah.
nurse. It's not,
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it makes a sense of kind of awkwardness where the man doesn't want to feel like, oh, he's a nurse, and maybe get like
Yeah. And there's
talked
also
about.
like the cultural things, like, for example, people might be scared to go for certain career paths based off, like, their culture.
I agree.
Like, if you're into, like, a very what do you call it, like, strict culture, like, you might want, like, and a man might not want to be, like, maybe a teacher because they're supposed to be the provider. They would have to go for, like, these big higher paying salaries that, like, demand a lot of working hours, 50-hour weeks, just
I
to
agree.
kind of stay with, like, what their family wants.
I think-
Another way around, a woman might want to go for jobs where they don't really work a lot of hours, like, can maybe work full time, but it's only 30 hours a week, so that they
Right.
can stay home.
So I think that ethnicity and even religion plays
Yeah.
a lot of place into it based on your morals and your beliefs of how much, you want to be working. Because I know different religions believe that different genders should be working more or working less
Yeah.
and things like that.
And we're not saying people are just, like, slaves to their culture and their families. They just do whatever else
Right.
everyone says. But there's obviously that pressure there. And,
Right.
I mean, we all know that we care about what our family thinks of us.
Right.
And there's pressures from all different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
pressure can be
different paths.
caused from so much different things, whether it is like family or religion versus what your goals are for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
for example, like, personal goals are different to everybody, and you can see yourself doing certain things, and you can control how far you want to take it.
Yeah. All right, and then just to kind of get some closing thoughts here, I'm going to kind of go one by one. We'll start with you, Paige, since you came out the gate with the strongest opinion. Having heard everyone's thoughts, has your opinion changed at all?
I do believe that my opinion has changed because coming into this, I kind of felt like there was a huge pay gap just based on sexism, but hearing everyone's thoughts and data based on, women being attracted to jobs that with more women and then men being more directed with labor jobs and women not really wanting to pursue those careers, I kind of understand that, it's not something that's, people just don't want to pay women as much. It's kind of something that's out of our control and, like, society based, like, oh, women have more responsibility, that's just the way it is that the women, like, has a kid. It's not anything we can control. So I think that my opinion kind of shifted a little bit. Not to say that there isn't a pay gap, because obviously there is, but I think it's less based on just people wanting to discriminate and not pay women as much, but also based on things we can't control, and also just women having more responsibility and being more lenient towards jobs that are less labor based and have less pay, which also is not in our control, that teachers get paid less than maybe someone who works.
Yeah.
Right, I feel like it's
with
like
labor.
multiple factors more than just sexism, and that's what it opened my eyes to, because as a man, like, when you hear about the pay gap, I always just assume it's sexism because
Yeah.
like of their gender, but like, through our conversation today, like, realize that it's way more than just that, and there's so many things that could go into it, and through our research in this conversation, I think really opened my eyes to that.
Yeah. And just to clarify what Paige said, I don't want, like, people twisting your words. When you say more responsibilities, she means, like, outside of the workplace.
Yes,
Not like,
yes,
women have to do
yes.
more than men.
Like,
She just
More
means, like,
responsibilities
more, like,
with, like,
domestic
taking care
responsibilities.
of
Yeah.
children and stuff.
Yeah.
For me, like coming into this, like, I was like split. Like, I did think there was a pay gap, but then, like, after doing research, I was like so split on it. Like, I'm like, oh, like, maybe there isn't a pay gap. But after hearing all you guys' thoughts, like, you guys really said a lot of interesting things, and it's like, it really like after all this, like, I really do like believe that the pay gap is real. I just would say that it's a little over exaggerated, but I'm with you guys here that I think the pay gap's real.
I came into this, I was planning to be more neutral in terms of the conversation, just kind of guide the conversation. But in terms of my stance, I was really on the side that the pay gap is, like, fake. Not, like, fake, that it existed, but
Like, exaggerated.
it wasn't because of sexism, like, at all. But I think we can all kind of come to this idea that there is a pay gap, and it is heavily influenced by gender, but it isn't just like, people not wanting to pay women. It's kind of all the effects we talked about. Really, when we were talking about just being comfortable at work, that was kind of what opened my eyes, and it really did make me like feel. I've been doing all this research, just numbers, thinking, oh, all of these facts say that there is no pay gap,
Mm-hmm.
But once you sit down and have a real, genuine conversation with people, it kind of like strips away just that like, strips down just the bare bones. Just really having a conversation makes you feel for people, makes you understand, and really just makes you think about like how you've been approaching everything.
I agree, because it's not always about statistics. You have to put kind of empathy, and you need to put conversations into it and opinions. It's not just all about facts, because you need to get an opinion and experiences from other people, because without that it can totally change the statistics, so that you can understand why people do the things they do and why these things turn out this way.
Yeah.
Right, and I feel like definitely hearing opinions and experiences is what made this conversation so useful, is because obviously as like a man, like we can't relate to it. Like we don't have those experiences that a woman might have, and a woman wouldn't have the same experiences a man might have. So like through hearing about everyone's experience, and it really like I think was pretty eye-opening, and just like the honesty of it.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah, I would say like it definitely helps having like a girl in our group, like in Paige. I feel like it was just all guys.
Yeah.
It would be like a
We
lot.
would just have one view, right?
Yeah, we'd have one view. Like we see her side of the story, you know. Like if it was just guys, maybe it'd be like
I
like
think
you said,
we probably would have
we
came to
should
the conclusion that the pay
Yeah.
gap is all
Yeah.
based
We
off
wouldn't
of
have had our
just
minds changed.
women go after less paying jobs,
Yeah.
women work less. We would have probably been a lot more on the side of the pay gap is just a complete myth.
Yeah.
I agree, and I think it's sort of a little bit harder for me to explain just based on my job and not being, not working around other men that I have, or a lot of other men that I have, experienced that. So I think that our jobs also kind of impacted this conversation.
Yeah.
All right, that's all the time we got today, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by. I truly did actually enjoy having this conversation. I know we were all kind of dreading coming here to work on this, but I can honestly say that I'm happy we did this. But
Me too. Yeah.
yeah. All right, we'll be signing off for today.